Obviously, we know now that with President Trump back in office, there have been a lot of executive orders signed, but there's one that we want to touch upon because it is important and relevant, although it only affects a very small percentage of the population. The Social Security Fairness Act was signed by President Biden earlier this month in January of 2025. It is an act that can provide significant relief to individuals from certain categories, but can also negatively impact the majority of taxpayers through higher taxes, through increased federal spending, and pose long-term risks to Social Security's financial health. So I think that what Mary and I will touch upon here is balancing fairness with fiscal responsibility is critically important and something that should be considered with regard to this new act.
But I think there's some good news to celebrate in all of this as well. So there's two groups of people, actually three, that are going to benefit from the Social Security Fairness Act. And the first group of people are what we call subject to the windfall elimination provision. And these are groups of municipal and government workers, specifically police officers, firefighters, teachers, who worked in jobs that were covered by a pension, also state and federal employees, but they were covered by a pension. And they were not eligible to receive Social Security because of this windfall elimination provision where the government didn't want them making more money essentially in retirement than they were when they were employed. Somebody had sat down and calculated at one point the pension and Social Security together, and they removed one from the equation. The problem in this is there's folks that have mixed work histories where they did their 20 years or 30 years in public service as an educator, as a police officer, and then went off and had a second act career. And they paid into Social Security, but they were still penalized. This was a punitive provision from those who were motivated to contribute and to build, to contribute and be employed and build their own wealth. The second group of people is what is called the government pension offset. This is specifically survivors and spouses that are entitled to receive benefits, and their benefits were reduced by this government pension offset number. They were calculated at 2/3 of what they would have been eligible to receive. So think about this: a stay-at-home spouse or a spouse who was earning less in the public sector, who was getting penalized on a Social Security benefit that they would have otherwise been entitled to receive through marriage, because your marriage is a legally recognized business contract by the government. It is all business. It's all about money. So these poor folks were being penalized. We're calculating about 2.8 million people nationwide that are falling into these two groups of people. But I want to take it to our home state of Rhode Island, where we're recording from today. 1 in 6 people in Rhode Island, one in 6 residents works for the state or the municipality. That's 1 in 6. Percentage. So it's a much higher percentage in our demographic to be aware of. The third group that we want to touch on is divorcees. Now, if you were married to someone for 10 years, at least 10 years, and you're divorced and not remarried, that's the caveat, you are eligible to have your benefits calculated based on your ex-spouse's work history, whether they're dead or alive. Doesn't matter. If you were married for more than 10 years and you are not married at this time, receiving or about to apply for Social Security benefits, their work history and this change in the Act will benefit you potentially if your earnings were lower.
So that is, I mean, that certainly will make an impact on those groups of
money.
People. Newfound money is always nice. But what does it mean for everybody else? What does it mean for everybody else?
For the groups, though, they're estimating right now that the financial impact, the positive impact on this almost 3 million people is going to be about $360 a month.
Right.
That's like a week at the grocery store.
It is. With inflation
right
having
now,
taken
in 2025, that's a lot. That's a half a tank of oil. It's an insurance payment. It's something. It's worth something. $360 a month is quite a bit. So
Can I go on the flip side of that?
Please.
So what I think that whereas that $360 will help these individuals, you know, substantially, especially with inflation being a factor. For everyone else impacted by this and not being eligible for that $360, you know, it's going to put potentially the pool of Social Security at risk, and where that could be mythical. And I know that Mary has some statistics that we will be sharing a little bit later. People have been concerned for many years about the health of Social Security, about the pool of money running out, about all the baby boomers aging and how that's affecting the output versus what the amount that Social Security is taking in. So with that being said, the projection is that by the year 2035, Social Security might run out of money. The trust might run out of money. So we have to touch upon what are, you know, the long-term financial sustainability issues. How can we combat these? If this act does in fact stay in place, what are the solutions to help combat this pool of money running out? And how are we going to help the future generations, you know, receive the benefits that technically they should be eligible for?
Well, it's interesting that this subject comes up now on the heels of an election cycle where we're exhausted from all of the political ads, you know, and politicians and aspiring, you know, candidates are threatening that we're going to lose Social Security or they're going to protect Social Security, you know, so. Here's the deal. There's a number of tweaks that can be made to the Social Security system, which are very small and probably not felt much by the individual taxpayer. That will help preserve the system. The first thing is that we can raise the Social Security payroll tax. I know, don't scream, but we can raise the tax by 1/2%. Payroll tax, 0.5%. We're trying to get people to increase their 401k contributions by 1% a year.
Yes, at minimum.
1/2%, and unfortunately, for people who are not proactive or have had any type of tragedy or misfortune that threw them off of their plan, they are relying on Social Security for a significant percentage of their monthly income. Yes. So this is a very serious deal. There's like over 60% of the population is relying too heavily on that Social Security check to get by. So 1/2% for all of us workers into the Social Security system. The second thing is, for those that are higher income earners, you are no longer taxed on Social Security on your earnings once you exceed $147,000 a year. So even if we raise that threshold slightly, and again, please don't misunderstand that I'm sitting here suggesting raising taxes. I'm not, because that's not where my spirit resides. But these are solutions to the problem, because we cannot have seniors, we cannot be paying into something that we are not going to receive benefit for, nor can we have seniors starving in the streets. We're not going to allow that to happen, but it's a solution. So we raise the threshold at which we tax for Social Security specifically. Another one, and this is going to be unpopular, the seniors are going to be very upset with me, but your Social Security benefits, you're only taxed on 50 to 85% of your Social Security income. Now you're taxed on other sources, your 401k withdrawals, IRAs, pensions, capital gains are taxed at a different rate, but income purposes, only 50 to 85% is taxed of your Social Security benefit. And just in Rhode Island, they increased your taxable limit to $50,000 of retirement income is tax-free on the state return. That's not the federal. That means that you save $1,500. You kept $1,500 that would have otherwise been paid out on the first $50,000 of retirement income. It's a little pay bump. That's an extra $125 a month, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Then they won't hate you, by the way, Mary.
What? Oh,
You're
no,
only the messenger.
I'm the messenger.
We're just
don't
the
kill me,
messengers.
folks. Don't hate me online. Don't hate the player. Hate the game. We can require all workers to pay into the system, and I think that we're edging closer by this Social Security Fairness Act, and that means that the state and local workers who do not pay into Social Security could now be required to pay into Social Security. And if they do, then that will also be an injection of revenue that's much needed to offset Another unpopular one for those of us that have not reached retirement age yet would be to increase the retirement age. Right now, full retirement age for our group is 67. We could increase it to 68. Now, the reality is, and we've noticed this through the pandemic, there was plenty of people who thought they would retire and decided not to because they were bored, because it was scary once they didn't have a job to go to. Right. And then there's another group to consider, which would be people that are doing, significant physical labor, nurses, mechanics, construction workers whose bodies are shot, by the time they hit 60. And so that would be something that personally I would like to see thoughtfully looked at by Congress, and to maybe make it earlier for some folks, because their longevity in some of these fields
diminished.
They have diminished longevity over the rest of us in the workforce. So it's just something to consider. It's not all, I want to give the positive with the bad. I don't want these folks that are already, they've got 2 rotator cuff surgeries and knee replacements, and they're trying to get to Medicare for a hip replacement. It's terrible. We got to treat them better. We can reduce future cost of living adjustments from 0.5% to 1%, and or by 0.5 of 1%. And there's some thoughts that the COLA formula right now might be too generous. I don't know that I'm on board with that right now, given the inflation that we are all existing and living through. So I'm not particularly a fan of that.
It's relative.
And we can change the retirement formula to slightly reduce future benefits. Right now we're calculating 35 years of earnings. We can raise it to 38 years to calculate benefits, which would actually benefit many workers, because you're earning more on your later years typically, because you have more skills, more expertise. And lastly, we could slightly reduce benefits on wealthier individuals.
Which is also a
again, I'm
difficult
not
one.
advocating for any one of these over anything else. I'm just simply saying that these are options to solve a problem, because right now there's 3 workers contributing for every 1 retiree, and by the year 2035-ish, there's going to be about 2 workers for every 1 retiree because of the rate of baby boomers retiring.
Well, that is how it goes. But I guess that comes into play with what we do and how we encourage our clients to rely on themselves and all the avenues available to save for retirement and invest for retirement. Social Security was never meant to fund someone's
100%
retirement.
of your income.
Exactly, but suddenly became that, over the decades. And here we are today, again, with just a tremendous percentage of the population collecting, people living longer because of modern medicine technology.
I also think it's been the decline of pensions. I mean, pensions are almost non-existent at this point.
They're cost prohibitive. I mean, look at the
exactly,
stats.
Longevity and interest rates being low for 15 years has hurt pensions. So in the absence of having those sources of income, people are relying more on Social Security than ever before, as part of their monthly need. So how do you get your benefits? First of all, if you're subject to the windfall elimination provision, you were the worker, you will automatically get your bump up in pay. You don't have to do anything. The government has promised to pay you on February 1st. I hope they come through on time.
See how they're admin.
But they have your work history. They know your Social Security number. They know where you worked. They have everything. So you are supposed to automatically get your stuff up February 1. And for those of you that were affected adversely by the government pension offset, you need to be proactive, and you need to contact Social Security and say, here I am, I want to be reconsidered for my benefits, okay? So the word is reconsideration. You want your benefits recalculated. You might have to prove through a marriage certificate your eligibility. Also, I don't want to forget that there are adult children that are eligible for benefits, and even minor children if their parents were older when they had them, or if they were adopted. But specifically children, adult children with special needs who are receiving government benefits based off of a parent work record. They are also eligible for this step up of
It's
their
actually an
benefits.
important category.
Extremely
Frequently
important.
overlooked. That should be addressed.
So you want to contact Social Security. There's published numbers, and what I'm hearing on the street is that people are sitting on hold for several hours. I was recently informed you should dial 877-402-0808, and a clerk will answer the phone and schedule you an appointment, either at the local Social Security office or on the phone, where you will have your benefits reconsidered and recalculated. So you need to be proactive. Don't worry about your own work history, your own work record. This is a spousal benefit. Do not leave money on the table.
And Rulla, a bonus question.
Go for it.
For people who are still concerned about Social Security, like Mary was talking about, people who are not close to retirement age, either in their 30s or early 40s, what would you suggest, as you were saying, it's a growing problem and more people are depending on Social Security, what can you do as a younger person to protect yourself or to give yourself more of a cushion so that way you're not in the same situation as so many Americans are finding themselves today?
Indeed. I mean, younger people should be focusing more on saving first, spending second. You know, they should be designating a percentage of their incomes and having that percentage peeled off and put into either a qualified retirement plan like a 401k, like an IRA, if they're eligible based upon their incomes, a Roth IRA, and even other non-qualified investments like individual accounts. Another really important consideration should be diversifying the assets. So maybe considering owning real estate at some point, whether it be a rental property or a residential property that later, you know, builds equity and could help fund a portion of their retirement. But always looking at appreciating assets, you know, how can I make my dollar turn into 10 over X period of time? It's critically important. The younger they can start, the better off they will be, the more time they will have on their side, the more compounding they will experience, and the less dependency they will have to have on sources of income like pensions, which are practically phased out for the younger generations, and Social Security.
And if I could add to that too, you know, it really comes down to being proactive for yourself and being smart about saving, about protecting your credit, about your earning potential and making sure that you're not leaving money on the table at work. It's looking for opportunities to create additional income streams. And dare I suggest, it's also about partnering with the right people in relationship, whether it's marriage or domestic partnership. If you're not on the same page financially, this isn't a problem that solves itself, not even in a small amount of time or a long, it's a problem. And when you're investing 6 figures in education now, many young people, to start off life with debt and then to have, you know, be partnered with somebody that has money problems is, you're setting yourself back. You're setting yourself back badly, particularly if you're the higher income earner and you get married. You put yourself in a position of also paying alimony.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And so I if I could warn people about that, it's about making sure that you're financially healthy and taking advantage of all of the opportunities, not overpaying your taxes, taking advantage of 401k matches, making sure that you're advocating for a raise when you deserve one, not being wasteful with money. I don't want to talk about avocado toast and lattes. You know, that's not the problem. That is not the problem.
You actually brought up a great point, though. You brought up a great point when you mentioned partnering with the right person. So whatever that might be for whomever it might be, if it's your maybe round 2 marriage, if you are midway through your life, again, whether it be 40s, 50s, and you are established or you've really worked your way, you've been fiscally responsible, you're proud of what you've accumulated, potentially considering a prenuptial agreement.
Don't consider it. Go have a consultation. Don't consider it. Go consider it with professionals. Your CPA.
It's not a shameful thing.
And a family law attorney. Protect yourself. And if everything is fine, everything is still going to be fine.
That's
after
right.
You have that.
That's right. It's just another spoke on the wheel to consider.
Absolutely.
In the planning process.
Absolutely.